Hello and welcome to Almost an Agreement. Today's episode is brought to you by Fanatic Brewing, fanaticbrewing.com/agreement. Check them out. Appreciate them for sponsoring us. They're open for their fan bases, their tap room. It's a cool place to go hang out. They've got a patio on it and stuff like that. They have Thursday night open mic comedy, Friday and Saturday from 5 to 10. They have $5 Black Angus burgers, $5 Black Bean burgers, and a $3 $37918. Is the beer special. It's $3 pints of that $37918 beer. The fan base is located at 2727 North Central. It's just a little bit past Happy Holler on Central there if you're familiar with the area. If not, go to almostinagreement.com and you can get a link to their page from there. Or go to fanaticbrewing.com/agreement and learn more that way. We are Almost Agreement, almostinagreement@gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Our website is Almost an Agreement, as prior mentioned. Go there and check out all the episodes or any of your favorite podcast providers. Let's start the show. All right, so Sam and I are in the room. Max may or may not call in. He said he was coming earlier this week and probably got busy doing his remodeling on his house. He's been gutting and resetting his house. AC was at the mother-in-law's celebrating Mother's Day, as far as I understand it. He also apparently worked 9 in a row. So 9 12s in a row will really put the kibosh on you. So that's that. I don't know, Sam, what's new, buddy? What's happening?
Ain't much new.
There's a lot new. You're the state. Okay, so we were joking about this off here. We'll start here, I guess, because you've been, since you're so busy at your day job, you get on the local PBS channel and they do a lot of the state coverage. And the state closed down. The state, the annual session is done.
Yeah, I thought they kept wrapping it up
for the state. And so I've seen a few of the items coming out, and there was an article, and I guess I could try to re-find it, about all the things that are going into effect July 1st. Permitless carry being the big conversational one. There's some gendered bathroom debacle. The new teaching one, that's an interesting one.
Some of those got sent to summer study, but I was reading an article earlier today about a number of bills that are on the governor's desk and how he has, I guess in the time, I don't know how long he's been governor, but he hasn't vetoed anything that's ever come on his desk.
Okay. So I don't know, maybe that's it.
I thought the controversial education one they were talking about earlier this week, I thought that was going into summer. I know the protesting / vehicle driver liability, I think that got sent to summer study.
I mean, that one's interesting to me. There's been a couple states that have done versions of it. And for what it's worth to me, I think it if it passes, it clarifies who the aggressor is. Because I think it was Meg McMuffin, one of our listeners / very active locally in the Facebook groups that I'm running around with. I think it was her that put a post up that says, so with my Second Amendment, if I shoot somebody trying to run me over while I protest, who's at fault in the situation? And I think, in my opinion, what the new protest running people over kind of law, as it's written, puts the aggressor being the person stopping traffic. Essentially, it is clarifying that if you are out in the street blocking traffic, you are therefore illegally detaining another individual by not allowing them to move.
Right.
Like if you and I were walking down the sidewalk and somebody walked up and stood in front of us, and then every time we tried to go around them, they kept stopping in front of us. They are the aggressor in this situation, and we have the right to defend ourselves in that situation. And so the protest law, with allowing people to run over protesters, is clarifying that statement to me. So if you're out in the street as of July 1st or whenever it goes into effect, if you're out in the street protesting, it is your responsibility to understand that you are the one aggressing on the people that are using the street for the purpose it is supposed to be built for, and that you are putting yourself at risk for the harm of being run over, because I don't know what you're protesting about. I don't know what you're doing, but you have me trapped in my car.
I mean, even the state legal they kept bringing in said that there was a lot of gray area in there.
Right.
Because it all comes down to, you feeling threatened, and then, how much are they truly blocking you? If you're walking on the sidewalk, I think they said if it's a group of like 3 or more people and you're blocking a sidewalk, I think there was one lawmaker that brought up, this would, as this law sits, you could get a felony for setting up a lemonade stand for blocking a sidewalk.
I mean,
It basically said anytime you're blocking waterway, a sidewalk, roadway, elevators, any kind of thoroughfare for people.
Right. I think running over is the extreme for sure. But
right. There's kind of gray areas like, due diligence basically. But I mean, if you got a line of 10 people across the road, how much do you have to swerve to do, due diligence and trying not to harm someone? And then, how much of that need is, are you just trying to go to work, or do you have, your significant other that's needing to go to the hospital and, you're trying to get them to the hospital?
Legally speaking, I think that's
because they were bringing up random things that have happened where, there were not necessarily just protests, but, there were people gathered and they were blocking an ambulance.
Right.
And just trying to get by.
I remember we had a weird one when I was in band at UT. There was we were right down there doing our Salute to the Hill for anybody that's a UT fan that goes down there and watches it. The band splits in two pieces around a corner, and the majorettes all go into the corner, and we do a whole big routine, and we play back up towards Ayers Hall on the hill. And then once that's done, the whole band finishes the corner and then goes in the stadium. Well, we had just finished it, and the band just made the corner, and there's an ambulance coming down whatever the road is that runs there right between the UC and the hill. And there was, band rules, you don't move for anybody. And so there was a good bit of looking around like, what are we doing? Are we moving? Do we stay here? What do we do? So eventually we all squeezed to one side and the ambulance got by, but we didn't split. That was the important part. We didn't split for the ambulance. But
right. But there was a lot of gray areas, as far as, peacefully assembling versus, a protest / riot going on.
Right. I mean,
again, like, oh, you're for peacefully assembling, then this law doesn't apply to you. But then, what you consider peacefully assembled, someone that's just turning a corner all of a sudden sees, 300 people in the street, they may not think it's a peaceful assembly.
Right. Yeah, that's
all just kind of their perceived threat. Like, well, they were blocking me and I had to get to work, I was running late. And it's just, I guess that's where I kind of see a lot of the gray area, because it's all essentially perspective. But then you've also got to prove, what's in somebody's heart. Did they maliciously try to run into somebody? And that's what some of the lawmakers were worried of, that this is kind of an open door to
run people over, jaywalking.
Because there were people that said they've already gotten emails from people saying they're like, hey, if you're in the road, I'm going to run you over.
Right.
And also people think it's kind of like a carte blanche for people,
which I haven't read the whole thing on it, but and again, like one of the real questions to me is like, if I have my kids in the car and there's a line of people blocking the street, and right. Especially with some of the videos we could see where people are pounding on hoods, and there's been plenty of times where people have been pulled out of their cars.
Those laws are already in place. I think it's called like menacing or whatever.
I don't know. I don't know. And maybe that's part of the problem too. Is that, and that's certainly part of the problem. Maybe not specifically on this one. Is that people don't know what the current laws are on a situation, and so they look to a new one to fix it. When it's like, well, this already exists because X, Y, Z, and maybe that would been a better solution for sure. Because I think that's one of the things that happens quite often is that we are unaware of the law that already exists on a topic. So instead of being educated by our legislature on what the law already is, they just go ahead and make a new one, because then it gets some political points in that whole bullshit.
They brought legal in a couple times. They're like, well, what's the current law?
Right. Okay, so I pull up, this is Fox 17 Nashville. It says, what's new in 2021? The first one is the Holly Bobo Act. It changes to the Amber Alert system, overwhelmingly passed, and increases the age limit from 18 to 21 to be considered an Amber Alert. Fucking really?
They passed it's called like silver something, but it's for the elderly as
right.
well.
Yeah, I've seen that one too. This high-profile case of Holly Bobo, gained national attention in whatever, Tennessee, whatever. That's stupid. I think that's stupid.
What?
That they changed it. Basically, this is another one of the lists. The state of Tennessee doesn't think you're an adult until you're 21, unless you're a criminal. Then you're an adult at like 15.
I don't think that's their logic. I'm assuming they're just trying to increase the likelihood of being able to put out an Amber Alert.
Right, because a 19-year-old... Right, and what it says is a 19-year-old is more important and less self-sufficient than a 25-year-old.
If that's the way you want to look at it.
I'm just saying, it's just another... It's the same thing with the smoking law and all the other stuff.
It's not trying to be a nanny state system.
Whatever.
I think it's trying to increase the likelihood that a missing person, may be able to be found.
Okay, next one is 911 operators and CPR. 911 operators in Tennessee can now provide CPR instruction to callers. Wasn't aware that they weren't allowed to prior. I could see the liability conversation in there.
I remember seeing that on like Rescue 911.
The minimum age for buying tobacco has risen to 21. I thought that went in at the first of the year. Man, we fucked up. It says the minimum age for buying tobacco has risen to 21 according to new law implemented by Tennessee Department of FDA. It says that persons who look under 30 will have to have an ID. So that's the new one on that one. Rights for pregnant workers. According to the new law, Tennessee Pregnant Workers Fairness Act ensures that pregnant workers have reasonable accommodations in workplace for themselves and their baby. These include things like extra bathroom breaks, limits to lifting, and ample water. So don't be mean to a pregnant lady if you employ her. That's it?
That's all the laws.
That's all the ones that's on this news story, at least. That's lame. We know there's more than that. We've just spent a whole chunk of time talking about ones we know is going to happen. Here's WVLT's story. New Tennessee laws effective in 2021. This is from back in January. So
I was about to say. That's
January 1. No, Tennessee legislature session day 21. Law changes. There we go. Let's see what this one says.
I think I did read Massey's Medical Cannabis Discovery Board. I think did pass.
That's so stupid. We need to get past that.
There was one that narrowly lost, but there's just still enough pushback.
Tennessee sends limited medical cannabis bill to governor. All right. Well, whatever. I can't find an up-to-date one.
Tennessee adjourned for the year. Here's what they did.
Where?
Right there. Right next to the one you were looking at.
Oh. May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. Here's what they did. Adjourned after 9 p.m. Special session. Blah, 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 blah. Permitless carry. Low THC oil pass. Okay. Years in the making, Republicans finally succeeded at passing the permitless carry bill. We knew about that one. They also passed the limited lease criminal justice reform package for the year, the result of 2-year push, albeit a watered-down version from his administration initially intended. Don't know what that one means. LGBTQ youth.
And that's one I really don't understand. It had something to do with bathrooms, but what it changed. Well, there's a lot of lawmakers that thought it was going to open the door to more lawsuits.
Among bills targeting LGBTQ youth, the legislature passed measures to ban transgender student athletes from participating in school sports according to their gender identity and to prohibit minors from receiving hormone treatments for gender dysphoria. While the sweeping abortion ban approved in the final hours of last session is being challenged in court, Republicans pushed through a separate measure.
That one's fucked up.
More likely to be upheld that requires fetal remains be buried and cremated. Yeah, we talked about this one a little bit. Lawmakers also slightly raised the per diem reimbursement rate, which had not been done in years. Apparently, they don't make shit.
I want to say the most they get for like driving back and forth is like $100.
Well, maybe they should do something about keeping gas prices down, and then that $100 will actually get them back and forth. Oh wait, that's Blackburn and Haggerty and them. They're the ones that fucking that up. Oh. Interested discussing Medicaid, remembering past stuff. All right. Anyway, the 3/5 compromise debacle. Way to go, Lafferty. Way to make us East Tennessee people look stupid. I mean, it's not a false take. It's just a wrong take. Like it's wrong. Don't get me. I mean, let me be clear. It is inaccurate at minimum, but it's a creative take on the truth.
Got it somewhere. So I mean, I'm assuming there's some people that are spreading that as fact. I mean, like I said, growing up in Georgia, it pretty much was taught that Civil War was all about states' rights. Right. I've actually gone back recently and looked at some of the, I think it was new state constitutions. It was basically letters of the southern states, like of their letters for succession.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I've looked at Georgia's and I don't think it was Tennessee, Georgia and another state. And within the first like paragraph or two, like the word slavery was specifically cited like 10 times.
Part of the reason, yeah. I mean, it sounds reasonable to me. I don't know.
It's like for years.
I don't know. I mean, there's then on the local one, the biggest narrative bullshitty push that I don't like how it is being talked about because I think it's inaccurate is American Cannon pulling the police from the schools.
Yeah.
What do you know about that? What have you seen about that? I mean, I think there's a number of plays, and I think Kincannon is guilty of a few political. It's a little bit of a political pandering move on her part. I think that's part of it. But really, what it is
I mean, is it just for the summer to have them kind of rethink it?
My understanding of what it is that the school board was talking about putting a resolution into having a conversation with how they are interacting with outside police agencies. Because one of the things that drives me fucking crazy, and I was guilty of it too, is of my long list of things that I didn't know for a long time. And apparently I learned yesterday from Tommy, when we were in school, they were actual cops. They were sheriff's deputies or city cops.
I think we had one of each.
Right.
I swear there was one that didn't look like he had an official.
At least according to Tommy, I talked to Tommy Smith yesterday, and he was saying that the school resource officers that we know of today, that system went into effect after Sandy Hook in 2012. Because I was like, yeah, we were back in Columbine. I mean, we were in school when Columbine happened.
Right.
But I don't remember anything. I mean, I remember some things changing as far as one of our very good friends.
Code, yeah.
Right. One of our very good friends got in a lot of trouble for making bad jokes. And some of that debacle from back then. But I want to say we always had a cop at school. Like, I don't remember not having one, but apparently, again, taking what Tommy told me yesterday, is that was an actual sheriff or city cop.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing the cruisers there.
Right. But currently, when you go to a school, if there's only one there, it's a school resource officer. That is an employee of Knox County Schools. It is not a sheriff, and it is not a KPD officer. Right. And
they've gone through some kind of law enforcement training,
right?
Not as much as a.
But so the narrative that's gone out and that people are talking about, the GOP side and their newsletter, and why one of their next new reason why we need to replace Kincannon as mayor of the city of Knoxville is that she's taking police out of schools. And it's like, it's not a false statement, but it's a really misleading narrative.
Did it go into effect like immediately?
No, it goes into effect.
The school system's still going on for the next month.
Right, it goes into effect June 12th. There are 15 KPD officers throughout the 89 Knox County schools. There's 30 Knox County sheriff's officers. They're not going anywhere. The sheriff already came out and said, "No, we're fine. We're good. We'll keep doing it." And Spangler, for that matter, was doing it he's playing the political game too. You know, he's like, yeah, we're here. We're not going anywhere. Remember, I'm going into election year next year. Don't forget me. But the reality is, of the 100, there's like 100 and something Knox County school employed security officers that aren't going anywhere no matter what the KPD or the sheriff's office does moving forward. And so this narrative is like they're taking all the uniformed police officers out of school. It's like, no, they're taking 15 KPD officers out of school. My theory on it is that the city has budget issues, so they take those officers out of the schools. They don't have to hire as many. Because there's been a lot of conversation, KPD included, of having a hard time getting officers. They have less than they want to have out on the streets and stuff like that. So take the 15 out of the schools. You don't have to hire as many more, and you have the coverage you want out on the streets. So I think it's a budgetary move on the city's part, and I think it's a political move on Kincannon's part because it panders to some of that further left that wants cops out of schools. Specifically the Austin East situation and all the parents that are and the protest groups that are out there saying that cops have murdered that kid and that Anthony Thompson Jr. I will say his name because it's appropriate to be told but that group that is out there that says the police murdered him for no good reason, which I kind of agree with, but those people want the cops out of schools. So Kincannon gets to sell that in her political moves, saying, see, I took the cops out of schools like you asked me to. Now, what's going to happen is over the summer, the school board and the police department and the sheriff's office are going to talk and are going to work something out. And we may not have any more KPD officers in schools next year, but we're still going to have resource officers that dress and look like cops and act like cops inside the schools.
Yeah, I thought one of the articles I read said they basically came to an agreement between the Knox County schools, KPD, and there's a KCSO was from like 98 or something.
Memorandum of agreement or something like that. Yeah. Right. And right. So I don't know
if this isn't like a renegotiating type thing.
Right. What kind of bothered me about it is Daniel Watson, who I had in earlier this week, was kind of the leader of this conversation on the school board side of it. And he didn't mention shit about it when he was in here.
I had that thought too.
I was like, dude, Like literally,
I saw something on the news
shortly
that
after he left. It was that night, I believe, after he left, and then it pops up, and apparently it was a conversation that was kind of going around. And again, I think what it was is that Kincannon said, "This looks good for me. This helps my budget. This looks good for me with the further left in town that want cops out of schools. This is good for my budget, and I could sell this as I'm helping the schools because the schools are going to have this conversation." And so if we take KPD out of the agreement, it opens the schools up to have that conversation a little easier, to start from scratch on a new system and a new agreement, instead of it having to be an argument over whether KPD is going to keep the old agreement or willing to work with the new agreement. It now forces the hand that was going to happen anyway. Like I said, I think it was a politics move.
I don't know how much
100%.
a budgeting play it is. Like you said, 15.
I mean, 15. What's a cop make? 50 grand. I mean, again, if one of the issues that police departments are having, and KPD is included on the list, is having enough officers on the roster, it gets 15 out of the schools and into the standard roster out on the streets where Kincannon and Chief Thomas wants them, right? So that's 15 less they have to hire to do their standard coverage. So I don't know, what's $75,000 or $750,000 a year, give or take. I would ballpark if they're making about 50 grand a year.
And I would think the cities be getting paid something from the school for having those employees.
Well, Matt Shears told me they don't. They were supposed to. That was part of the agreement in the old days, but they don't. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what I heard. But yeah, I would think so too. I would think that there would be. But again, if you're the school system, why would you pay for a city cop when you could just hire your own?
Better trained? I don't know.
I mean, I'm just saying, like it would be that. That's the question. I mean, that's the legitimate question I have. If we're going to have our own security detail that works for us, why would we pay equitable or more, even though they might be functionally better? Maybe. I don't know what I haven't got to talk to any city cops yet about their training protocols. But if it's a sheriff's officer, they're 40 hours a year of training. They're 1 week a year that they go train. I doubt is much better than their 1 week a year trained school resource officer. And the other thing that apparently Dana Watson did tell me that they're having one of the issues they're having keeping resource officers, and why they needed to borrow some cops from the city and county, is because there was a 200-day contract. 200 days a year, so they were contracted for, which more than covers the school year and a little bit of training time and stuff.
Right.
And so now they're upping it to a 221-day contract. And apparently the even check thing that we talk about all the time with teachers, apparently it's the teachers union, the teachers union credit union.
Even check.
So that like teachers they only work 9 months, but they get it, so their checks go to their bank.
Right.
Apparently it's the bank that does the legwork, where their whole check goes to the bank, and they take their whole salary and divide it by 52 or whatever, and then they get the amount deposited in their account each week to spread their salary out over the whole year. But the bank does all the legwork. It's not the school system. If they want to do that, it's an option.
Right.
But so I was talking to our school resource officer about it the other day. He's like, I don't want to do another 21 days. It's like there are some guys, and he said he thinks what the plan is that they're going to grandfather it. So if you're currently on the roster, you can stick with 200 or option into the 221-day year. But any new hires will be forced to the 221. And I think it was a Kyle Ward thing that I thought was genius. And this should be, I think this would be an interesting something, and maybe they do talk about it, maybe they don't, because you got all these guys that have all these officers that are going to have their summers off. The busiest time for festivals and major events downtown and stuff like that are over the summers. And apparently one of the issues that KPD and the sheriff's department has is staffing security for festivals and other events. So it's like, well, you got all these school resource officers that have more training than the average Joe as far as this kind of thing. Maybe you could use them to supplement that, instead of having to hire more officers full time just to cover the boom of the summer. Or I have a private idea, but I don't know.
I mean, talk to some of the mega churches. I know they've started hiring security
they do.
in the past few years or so.
Yeah, and I know, like
some of those may be, off-duty police officers as well.
Which I know there's rules about that, because bars used to do it. Some of the bars I used to work at or frequent used to have an off-duty officer, and I believe they were not. They were not
like a security shirt.
But I've been some places where they're in uniform.
Yeah,
and I believe that's against the rules. They're allowed to moonlight, but they're not allowed to moonlight
as a
as an
KPD.
officer. Right.
They can moonlight as security, but they can't act in the official capacity as a on-duty police officer.
So it's like, I mean, are they going to get busted
so
for?
you can't carry your service weapon and etc.
Right. Are you going to get? Would that count as impersonating an officer when you are an officer but off duty, but working and acting like one?
Good question.
Mm.
Guess as long as you didn't identify yourself as.
But yeah, anyway, the moral is that the narrative's bullshit. Like it really bothers me that this narrative's at play, that Kincannon's taking security out of schools. It's just a false narrative, and it bothers me. But that was the narrative. That's the I don't know. I'm not happy with Herrera and his moves with the GOP so far. Like he's not they're I don't know. They're just, I can't figure out what they're doing. And what they are doing is my least favorite part of politics. Is that, and it's the AC said it perfect when we were talking about the legacy of Trump. That Trump made the blueprint on how to win, and in my opinion, Herrera's going with it. And so, love you. Don't get him started. It's the wonderful wife, everybody. That's the first time on air. Oh wait, no, she was on a whole show with us. I forgot. It's been a year and putting some change, but it seems to me that Herrera's taken the model that, and my least favorite part being you're going to vote for us because we're going to make it so you can't vote for them.
Dirty politics has just kind of gotten easier because you can get so much bad information out there so quickly that it's harder to dispel it before that bad information's already gone out. And everybody's like, no, I already read. That's not the way it is.
Yeah, and and I was close. I was chatting with him about a number of things. I'm trying to get him to come on the show, and we're trying to get scheduling and stuff and whatever. But I was thinking in my head, I was like, man, like I almost want to say, like, man to man here, buddy. If this is the avenue, as much as if we get down to the brass tacks of it, of what I feel like really politically and stuff like that, and what I'm looking for, I'm more likely to vote Republican in Knox County than Democrat. It's just who I am as a voter. I'm more likely to vote for Republicans, but if this is the game you're going to play, it's going to make me really hard. It's going to make it hard for me to vote for Republicans, because if the whole game is whatever mayor that the Republicans put up for the next city race, which is not until 23, I think. But whatever mayor they put up, if the whole pitch is, here's all the things Kincannon did wrong, here's all the bad things about Kincannon, and we don't say shit about who your actual mayor is and who the mayor and what your mayor is going to bring to the table, just not that. Right. That I'm not okay with that. I don't have a really hard time voting for somebody that their whole stance is I'm not them.
But I'm assuming they've done, polls or whatever, and they figure out that would work.
I don't know.
It does work in many situations.
I'm curious about that, though, because there's national polling. There's been some national polling that we're like, I think it was a Pew poll a little while back, that over 50% of Americans consider themselves an independent voter, and that might be a very AC semantics statement of independent voter. Right. It may be one of those, well, if you're asking me, I'm going to say I'm going to vote for who I think's right for the job, not by the party.
Right.
Where they really are just going to vote for the Democrat because that's who they are. But the poll was like, and apparently over from the last time they did a similar poll, which was like 5 years back, it was like 45% to like 57% consider themselves independent voters.
I mean, when you look at how many people don't vote, there's a lot of people that are just kind of turned off from the whole two-sided system.
Yeah, and I think that's the reality of play. To me, this is why I wish my Libertarian Party was a little bit better functional as a party, because I think the door is wide open. I mean, I really do, because I think there's enough people. I think here will be a little bit different because we're such a red place, historically speaking, at least, because we don't have a lot of middle ground voters. But I don't know. I just feel like realistically, outside of the city of Knoxville, we don't have a strong countywide or even statewide. We don't have a strong Democrat presence. Period. Democratic presence. Which is the right one there? See, this is where I get confused on this fucking semantics thing on
Democratic.
This strong presence of Democrats.
There we go.
In politics. They're here and whatever, but they don't get voted in. But where I see a libertarian is somewhere in the middle, what that would do to the picture would be interesting. And, we've got a couple of, at least one Green Party, a person who at least affiliates more towards the Green Party going in the city races. It's your district. Tommy Smith's your current guy. There's God, I need to look it up.
See, I thought I had the Reverend guy. I thought was my district.
For city?
Maybe that's a county commissioner.
Sam McKenzie is your
think
state
that's-
rep.
And maybe that's who I'm thinking of, Sam McKenzie. Okay.
Yeah.
He's my local state rep.
Yeah, he's your.
But I mean, even there's. I don't know if you've seen some of the talk this week with Liz Cheney. I mean, there's kind of an identity crisis within the national GOP. I read a story that Ted Cruz came out the other day that the GOP party would fail without Trump. I guess still being a part of the GOP.
David Hayes, Tommy Smith, Elizabeth Murphy, and Martin Pleasant are who is picked up petitions for District 1 for you. David Hayes, I've reached out to David Hayes. I'm trying to get him on the show. I talked to Tommy yesterday.
Sema.
I'll have to follow up with. I was supposed to have Sema. Sema had a pet die. I'm sorry to hear that, Sema.
Oh.
We had to cancel for that, and I'll get mad at people canceling on me, but that's not one of the reasons. I will let that one go for sure. I still need to reach out to the father-son Edward Cook combo for District 2, Edward and Jeremy Cook.
2 for District 3.
Yeah. I believe.
But they've still got time. People still have time to pick up.
No, I
right
I
there.
believe pickup
deadline is 5/20 to return.
Yep.
Okay.
5/20 to return, and then you have 30 days to rescind your petition.
Okay.
And then after that, you're in whether you want to be or not. But I've got Garrett Holt in the pipeline. We haven't figured that one. I got Miss Harper in the pipeline as well. So I've got a handful of these. Dan Davis dropped out. I know that because apparently Mr. Clonaris, Lauren Ryder's the incumbent, but Jim Clonaris apparently raised a boatload of money in the first weekend of fundraising. And so Dan decided that it was probably not a good move for him to. It wasn't really efficacious. Is that the right word? Efficacious.
I think you're making that up.
I think it's the right word. It would not be an effective campaign for him if he were to continue with Jim and.
There's advantage.
No, I think efficacious is the word. Siri. Anyway, but yeah, David Hayes. I'm trying to get a hold of him, but apparently he leans more Green Party, is what I've been told on his. He is not a Knox County. He's not part of the Knox Dems, at least.
I think he lives close.
Yeah, well, I mean it's District 1. You got to be here somewhere.
That's true.
So, I mean, District 1 is the south. I mean, it's the city limits south of the river. That's all District 1 is. And I don't know how far down Chapman Highway it goes. I don't think it goes very far. I think it goes down to that firehouse, right past the Krogers and stuff.
Yeah, we're going to a new district. I mean, you get into Sevier County when you go like 5-10 miles down Chapman.
Well, that's city district. Once you get past there, you're in county district. It's a different district in the county. I think that's district. That's Carson Daly's district. Not Carson Daly from MTV, but Carson Daly. I guess he's on the Today Show now. He's legitimate. But yeah, Carson Daly's the South Knox County district. Yeah. Okay. But I think that's District 2. I don't think it's District 1. No, District 2's Courtney in central north Knox County. The Broadway corridor and stuff like that. Fountain City, that's District 2. District 1's downtown area. I don't know. I'd have to pull it.
So if the state's wrapping up, are locals kind of wrapping up their session as well?
No, locals year round. They go.
I wonder when state starts back up, because I thought they were getting ready to do like the state budget, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, we're going to go ahead and, we're going to end this committee. They're all thanking each other for, I want to thank the speaker.
I assume they still have to vote to approve the budget, but I don't think it's.
I'm like, they may have just been committees that were kind of closing down for the session.
Yeah, I don't know.
Until the call of the chair, I think they call it.
I'll try to get, I don't know, maybe I'll try to get Lafferty or Zachary, or even Sam McKenzie in here and talk to them about how the logistics of the thing works, because I thought they had 2 sessions. I thought they had a first and second session.
They still meet, because like I said, they were sending bills to summer session, so I'm assuming they're still meeting somewhat. discuss and do different
Yeah,
things.
I mean that's I am curious to know that. That's something we do need to follow up on, because I am curious to know exactly how that works, because I knew that was on. I know there was intent to that, and that's part of the you got to work, like you can't. It's not a full-time job financially, so you've got to have money somewhere else if you're going to hold those seats. So like you have Eddie Menace, who is a business owner and makes good money there, and so he doesn't do anything functionally in his businesses anymore. I'm sure he does do stuff still, but that kind of thing. And I'm the more.
I wonder if he has to divest, like, we expect a lot of lawmakers to do that have holdings in certain businesses to have that buffer from, voting on laws.
See, I don't think you can. I don't think you can reason. I agree with what the premise of it, but I don't think you can reasonably do that if you're not paying enough for the job. Like, I mean, essentially, for all intents and purposes, it's Lauren or somebody was telling me they make about the same as they do. City council and county commission and school board all make about the same money. It's like $17,000 a year. It's like $600 a week or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's not livable. So you have to be able to. You either have to have money somewhere to be able to do the job. Where at least with the local stuff, the way they do it part time, you could functionally do your day job and still hold office.
Yeah.
Where
I think most of them, if it's a bill, they'll kind of sit out and be a present non-voting or something.
Right. Well, Kyle was telling us, like,
if they perceive there's a conflict of interest of something they could be voting on.
Like if the county, if the county wanted to do a trash contract with a pickup, Kyle would have to abstain from that conversation, even if he bids it for his trash pickup company or not. Right. Since that's in his industry, it's a conflict of interest to him, even if he's not bidding, just because he could have a beef with Tennessee Waste Solutions or something like that personally and vote against them just because he wants to fuck that guy over because of he's a competitor to his day job. So yeah, I don't know, like that is a valid point. I need to follow up with somebody. And maybe it's to take a chance to talk to somebody new to follow up with some of the procedural parts of how the state stuff works moving forward. Because I don't know, I'm in my head, at least, I know last year they had a couple of emergency sessions in this summer and fall because of pandemic stuff, but I don't know if they do anything for the rest of the year. And that may be by design so that these individuals can go back to their normal lives and pay their bills because the state's not going to do it for them, which I'm good with. I prefer it not to be a high-paying job, but it does give a weird spot, because there are people that are likely have valid leadership and good ideas on how to do things differently than the way we're doing them, but can't afford to take the position because they have bills to pay.
All right.
Some single mom out there that's got some brilliant ideas, but has no way to even begin to attempt because she has to manage her children and keep her kids fed and herself fed and a roof over her head and stuff like that. There's no way that she could do the job and keep her life in order. Yeah. And so that's an issue. And Kyle brought that up too on the countywide one. I think this last year being a specifically crazy year, and that as things kind of start to normalize, it may be less of an issue. Who was it? Somebody made a joke about how many if they got paid by the email, she'd be rich. And I was like, yeah, you should charge a quarter. The county should charge a quarter. If you want to email your representative, it costs a quarter. Just for the.
I wonder how much like campaigning they do. I know I've seen stats on federal level. They say on average most lawmakers spend like 30 or 40% of their time in office. Kind of what they call dialing for dollars.
Yeah, fundraising.
Fundraising and trying to re-campaign. To make sure they stay in office.
Right. And that's, again, I think that's one of the gross issues with it, and I don't know the solution. I don't think term limits are the solution to it. I get it. I understand the premise of why people like the idea of term limits for Senate and House of Representatives, but at the same time, I don't know that solves the issue because they're still going to be campaigning for the party.
All right.
I think the prevalence of the party is the bigger problem to me. I don't know. I guess that's my solution to it. We need to break up the two-party system. And
it's kind of like the way there's been talk of it, I guess, in Israel. I guess they just had and they do it in England as well. But, when someone gets to like the leader of the party, they have to have like a coalition government where essentially, I guess they've kind of got
it's a parliamentary system.
Yeah, is that the parliamentary?
Right. And so like
system?
they can call for election of prime minister like anytime. Like it's not a fixed election.
Like a referendum or something.
Yeah.
Apparently, I like how if you're going to be a leader, like you've got to get enough people together that's going to keep our government functioning and make sure things are getting done instead of everything just being split 50-50 and just constantly.
What is it? Who's Israel's Netanyahu? Yeah, apparently Netanyahu's been.
He failed to make a coalition. Now this other guy, I think, has like 2 weeks to form a coalition government.
Right, and so like apparently this has happened a number of times over the last couple of years, like many times that there's been challenges to his prime ministerness, and the challenger can't form a strong enough coalition to take it over. Yeah. And that's why he's still there. And so I don't know if that's a pro or a con on it. I don't understand our relationship with Israel as nations, let alone how Israeli politics works.
I try to look in a little of it, but
like I get it. It's like it's such a huge national politics issue, and I don't understand it. My dad's version of it is that if we weren't super allies with Israel, that they would wipe Iran and a couple other countries in Palestine and a couple other countries off the planet. My dad's version of it is that we keep by being allies with Israel, we keep them in check from what they want to do. That's my dad's version of it. Right. I don't understand it. My dad could be 100% right or 10,000% wrong. I don't know.
Or kind of in that same logic, with us backing Israel, maybe it prevents other countries from attacking it for fear of shaking the hornet's nest that is the U.S. military.
Right, because we'll come and live in your country for 20 plus years, forever. And
I mean, the whole Israeli
and delay leaving so we can do it on a national holiday.
It's kind of crazy in its own, as far as settlements going into the West Bank.
Yeah, I don't even begin to understand it.
Which is good. It's just stuff that's gone back through centuries.
Yeah,
it's not like something's gone. I mean, they had the 7 Days War back in the 60s or 70s.
Yeah, I don't get it.
It's a lot of old history, and I mean, with that, you've got like groups of people, kind of. You've got the Kurdish that were involved in Syria, but the Kurdish aren't just in Syria. They're kind of they go across multiple borders, but they're kind of like their own group of people.
Yeah.
Kind of a lineage of people.
Right. And then you have the intertwining of the religious aspects of it's everybody's holy sites are the same 3 sites.
Right. Or in the same city.
Yeah. And fucking, what is it?
Moved to the embassy.
Yeah. So I don't understand. Like I just don't understand that geopolitical conversation at all, which leans into my libertarianism too. It's like why do I care? I mean, I do. I'm not saying like, well, they can just blow each other up and then I don't. That's not my goal in the conversation.
Not in my backyard. Just don't bring it over here.
I mean, that's kind of what we do with it now, and that's the stupid part. But it's like to me, it's like I get it. Like I understand that there is a need to try to influence peace throughout the world and blah 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 because we are a superpower and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's like, at what cost? When do we throw our hands up and say we can't do we can't fix this problem?
We've propped up enough puppet government,
right? And we keep doing it, and that's the gross thing is like, we're this past year and all the craziness. I'm not. The more I think about it, the less I'm really upset about. I'm upset about the way we handled the number of different parts of the pandemic and stuff like that. I'm upset about the stupid cash payouts and not really well thought out. Cash payouts that we did and the different stimulus checks and shit like that. I think it was poorly managed and poorly executed and poorly conceived for that matter. I mean, I think we could have done a number of different things a number of different ways, but we can't afford it. Realistically, we couldn't afford what we did, nor to do any more than we did, but we still figured out how to pay for it. But we still have, the largest military on earth times by 10, which we're not cutting that back. We're growing that just like we always do.
I think part of the spending was kind of a scramble to get money in, business hands before they completely had to shutter.
And again, I'll give a little bit of I'll give a little bit of grace to the panic. There was a panic for a minute there, and not the best decision was made in a panic mode. But the reality is the $3 trillion, $5 trillion total extra spending or whatever this year on. We could take that out of the military budget and still have the largest military on the planet by leaps and bounds. That kind of stuff is what bothers me about it. It's not that it's unaffordable. It's unaffordable in the current system. Same thing that's going on the local level in the city here.
I mean, the military budget's always been an issue going back decades of how much is spent.
Right, but it never goes away. Like, and there's for whatever reason, there's no political will to do something about it. Anytime anybody
it goes back to and wants to cut it, they're like, oh, you want to cut our security, and you're going to open up the door to blah blah blah. And we're not going to be able to protect ourselves and protect our friends.
Okay, bullshit. Somebody needs to call bullshit on it because it's bullshit. Like what other nation with half the military? If we had half the military we have, What other nation would be dumb enough to pick a open war with us? Probably nobody. Sure, there'll be some little shit here. Sure, there's some other stuff there. And again, I agree that, we have obligations. We've made agreements with people. We have obligations to that. But at some point, it's like a bad relationship. You got to break it off at some point.
I mean, China and Russia is really our only military counterpart as far as power.
Right.
I think China has the largest standing army.
Right. They just can't get them anywhere.
No, they've been building super carriers and stuff.
Yeah.
They're pushing more into the South China Sea.
Right. And realistically, that is an issue. But still, we could, there's 1,000 ways that could be handled. And we're not doing them any of those ways. We're just staying above. Because again, even if China decided to go open war with us, and we both decide we're not going to nuke, we're gonna stay clean because we both have nukes.
Right. We've got the largest ocean in between us.
Right, but we do have some sort of open war with us and China. We can't even functionally do that because our giant ass, like literally the military size we tried to build is a big enough military that we could fight China openly and directly, and also still have the 7 other wars going on around the planet at the same time. Like if we went into open war with China, they'd start drafting and shit like that. Even though we have more military than they could, we don't have the bodies, but we have more military power than China could touch in open war. But we'll still draft for it because we need more. We'll still spend more money on a larger military than we already have because we're in an open war with China. It's like, no, just put the entire army and Department of Defense together to go fight China and we'll be fine. But no, you've got to stay in Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya, and we got to keep funding the Saudis to, do whatever they're doing to the Yemenis and however many millions of things are going on in and on and around Africa that we don't know about. That happens probably all the time.
We had a close call with Iran, I think, earlier this week or last week. One of our warships that had smaller boats, and they said it's happened a few times. I want to say they got within like 60 meters of them. And our warship, shot out some warning shots, like over the bow, basically.
Yeah.
And they finally, kind of took off. But they said it's happened a few times where they've had smaller ships, like just.
And again, this is my ignorance showing for sure. What happens? What happens if we have open war with Iran? We won't do open war. We won't go in there and erase them from the planet, which we are perfectly capable of doing.
Right.
We'll have this weird little, because again, one of the issues too is that we're
more likely we would just send in some special forces. It'll be done before and bomb a power facility or whatever.
Right, or just erase Tehran,
military base.
Just erase Tehran from the map, and the rest of Iran will follow.
It's kind of like trying to give them a little black eye, like, hey, this is what we did. Like, we didn't want to kill you, but we just broke your leg.
But it's still, it's like, what is are we not more or less antagonizing the fight by hanging out close enough?
That's the way a lot of countries saw it. I mean, for a while in Afghanistan and Iraq, we tried to be the liberating and winning hearts and minds, but it got to the point where a lot of those people that lived there were like, "No, you're not winning our hearts and minds." Like, it's really starting to piss us off.
Right. But I'm saying, like, even with the Iran one that we're
occupiers.
but with Iran, who we don't occupy any of their actual territory, but we stick nearby, and then we get mad when you poke at us. It's like, I don't know. I mean,
and there's a lot of buildup with Russian forces and Russian-backed Ukrainian forces kind of on their border right now. It's been kind of a real tense situation.
I don't know. I just I don't feel like there's any real. I don't. To me, and to get real conspiratorial, not real, but a little bit conspiratorial. To me, it's we have to. It's the same complaint that I talk about when we talk about how complicated government is. I feel like the long-term issues with Russia, the long-term issues with China, the long-term issues with Iran, the long-term issues with North Korea, the long-term issues with Venezuela and some other countries and stuff like that, that there's problems there. I'm not saying there's not problems there, but it's a hey, look over here. Hey, look over here. Hey, look at that thing over there. Forget about this stuff going on up here. Yeah, forget about that Snowden character. That's stupid. He doesn't care about you. All the other.
That's part of like the general news cycle. Is you might see a story of something really crazy, but then they go on to like puppies. Look, puppies.
But that's what I'm saying, though. I think that I mean, especially the Russia part of it, functionally, economically, all the parts and pieces of the superpower that was Russia doesn't really function. I mean, other than Putin being a general gangster. I mean, Other than, I mean, just straight up, I mean, he just is. Other than that, I don't, as far as I've heard from some less than mainstream sources, and I'll get that out front, is that functionally, Russia doesn't have the power to do any economic damage worldwide. They just don't have the means to do anything. They can't place sanctions. They can't, they can't embargo and do anything that's really going to hurt.
Oh, I think most of Europe gets their natural gas from Russia.
I'd have to learn more into that, but I'm sure there's other options.
I mean, they are so large; they do have a lot of
that's true
mineral resources.
But I think
I think that's been part of our issue as well. It's kind of come to fruition as far as our decline in manufacturing. That we rely on so many other international countries for
that's our real China problem. That's
rare minerals.
Right. That's the real China problem. Is how much production, regardless of it's the human resource of.
I think that's one reason that's kind of kept us from going for war, because we are so heavily dependent upon them for many things,
and we need to fix that for a number of reasons, and not go to war with them. And
we're both win-win. Economically tied to the other.
Yeah,
they need us buying their stuff, and we need them making our stuff.
Yeah, and that is a positive in the moving forward of that conversation. It's like, why would China start a war?
Right.
We would maybe to try to get ourselves out of some of the debt we owe them. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. But again, I think it's as AC likes to say quite often, it's a smoke and mirrors thing. It's so that we're talking about this and not talking about the spying apparatus or the new snitch bill that we're doing here locally. We're going to start paying snitches, and
we do that anyway.
Well, there's a new one. That's all I was talking about. But just like that to me, that's what it is. And then have a good, intelligible conversation with somebody, and it's going to, if we're talking national politics, which I've tried, I'm much less active in my national politics following than I have been, because I'm trying to focus on the local.
Right.
But, get into some argument with somebody, and we start talking about, like, I'll throw it out that Biden's delaying our leaving Afghanistan so that we can put it on a fucking holiday, and we can make it a holiday to match the day that started it, essentially. And you're right.
I think that was just an end date, but I don't know.
Well, apparently it was June. Trump had already worked it out to be June.
Right.
Now, you were right when we talked about it before, that it's not done until it's done. So Trump could have made it June, and if it didn't happen in June, whatever. It didn't happen yet, so Trump didn't do it. I get that. But that was the original plan. But Biden pushed it back to September 11th. So we have it officially on the 20-year anniversary of the event that started this whole debacle. That's when we're leaving. And
I think it's, I mean, I haven't read much into it, but I think it's been more just military forces. I think that's going to exclude, military contractors.
Sure. Yeah, we're not leaving.
Which I think
we're not leaving by any stretch of the imagination.
If I remember reading a while ago, that's most of like what the American presence was there. We really only had 1,200, Army soldiers there.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere.
We had 5,000, Blackwater and other military contractors.
Yeah, no, for 100%. We're not we as the West are not getting out of Afghanistan by any stretch of the imagination. But the official, actual American flag on the sleeve soldier won't be there. But there'll be plenty of people that are doing what the Department of Defense tells them to do while they're over there. Forever. But that's not the point. We're ending the war that never officially started, but whatever.
We declared war on terror.
And that one will never end. And now we have the war on.
Which it was just a genius move.
I mean, it's the same. Well, I mean, it's the same. If you think about it this way, this isn't fully conspiratorial, but it's in that direction. It's the same thing that the war on drugs was. You made it so broad and so overwhelming that the people that profit from the game that we made the war on drugs be, the prison complex, the police industrial complex, everything, all the people that are involved and make money off that game, it never has to stop. Yeah. And that's the best. I mean, if you're in the business of profiting from that thing, if you don't have a real enemy, you never have to quit. You can just add people to your enemy list and keep going. I mean, it's the dumb. I mean, Rogan said it. He's like, we should declare war on homelessness, and we can lose that one too.
That is an interesting thing. Where there was a woman that was going to a bunch of FEMA meetings where they were getting together and doing mock, disaster drills, basically, where they prepare, getting resources here, doing simulations, basically. And she was talking to them about, declaring a natural disaster, or homelessness or poverty being a natural disaster. It was funny because one of the places they were at and doing it in was in Chicago, and they were talking about how much this simulation was costing, and it was like $3 or $4 million. It's like, you're doing it in a neighborhood that is, that could have done so much more. And you guys are playing war games, national disaster games.
Right. To test your ability to help out where you could just actually go fucking help somebody.
Right, in the place that you're doing it in right now.
Right. And nothing, you could spend that same $3 million more or less doing the same exact thing that you're practicing on real people and put real help in place.
And the guy in FEMA thought it was a good idea. He's like, it would be kind of hard to do. How do you declare something like that a natural disaster, basically?
Yeah. I mean, and again, it goes back to there's lots of parts and pieces to it that are causal. And as far as I've seen, there's not solutions. There's no real solutions on the table. I don't think a minimum wage increase changes that. There's a lot of things that are talked about being positives for it, but I don't think there's a lot of that stuff is going to actually do anything.
There's just a lot of facets that it's hard to bring them all together and have one thing kind of fix everything.
And I'm not sure that there's desire to fix. I think there's rhetoric desire, and it's a good sales pitch when you're out on the campaign trail or whatever, but there's no real benefit in fixing some of these problems for the people that have the ability to fix it, I guess is what I'm saying. That was I can't remember. It looks like Colin, but Colin Noir.
I think I've seen him on Rogan a couple times.
Yeah, Second Amendment activist, the Pew Pew Nation. That's like he has a whole set of merch. It's all Pew Pew stuff, Pew Pew Life or something like that. And he's really good, really smart. He's I can't remember what school he went to, but he's a lawyer. I think it was an Ivy League school or whatever. And he was on Rogan. He was talking about he was in San Francisco and he was talking to some local guy about the homelessness situation. And it's like the state of California in 2020 spent $500 million on homelessness, and it got worse. It's like, how's that work?
In San Francisco or in
California? The state of
the
California. But the homelessness as a whole got worse. And apparently the guy he was telling the story that he was talking to about it, it's like the problem with bureaucracy in general is that when you give somebody a job to do a thing like fix homelessness, if they do their job, they lose their job. And you're putting people in a weird spot. And again, I say it all the time, especially when it comes to government action, incentives is the key. And if your incentive is to lose your own job, it's going to be hard to get people to really do that. It's not a quality incentive for a program. Here's the program. Here's $10 million to achieve your program. If you do it, you disappear.
I mean, homelessness in California has been an issue for years as far as it's a very high cost of living. You have people that are living on borderline poverty as it is. I think they say most Americans don't have more than $300 in their checking or savings account.
Right.
I mean, they're one or 2 months away from being evicted out of their house.
Right. And I mean, and we haven't even seen the beginnings of it, and it's going to get crazy once the eviction and the foreclosure moratorium comes to an end at some point. Mm-hmm. They keep pushing back the date, but at some point the shoe's got to drop.
I think Texas already dropped it. There's a number of states that have already dropped it.
Yeah, and so I don't know exactly what the plan is and how that's all going to play out. But it's going to get worse before it gets better, for sure, on that end of things, because there are people that have been living rent free for a year, and that landlord's going to want his year back.
I can't remember
because he's got a mortgage to pay.
I can't remember if it was county or East Tennessee wide or if it was the state of Tennessee, but I think they interviewed a number of landlords and said it wasn't as bad as a lot of people thought it was as far as our state. That most landlords were still getting their money.
But as far as the pandemic and stuff as a whole, Tennessee did well economically through the pandemic. Mm. We can argue medically or not. That's AC needs to be here for that conversation. I don't know how we stood medically on it, but economically Tennessee did better than a lot of states. And like it or not, that's because Governor Lee tried really hard not to shut us all the way down ever, and was quick to push back into coming out of it and to release to take away some of the restrictions that were put in place because of it. And you can disagree with it medically all you want, but economically it made a difference. I mean, you look at states like New York and California who were locked down longer, harder than a lot of other states, and they're the ones that are going to have it's going to be a bigger, longer process for them to come back economically. Now, again, we got to compare and contrast that to the medical side of it, and I don't know. I'm not gonna speak strongly one way or the other on it, but the reality of the economics is the economic shutdowns. The longer the economic shutdowns went, the harder it was on that state, and then the longer it's going to take for those states to come back. That's why Florida and Texas are ahead of the curve because they shut down the least.
Yeah.
And Tennessee's high on that list. Alabama is high on that list. I think it was Alabama. Yeah, it was Alabama that Lauren Ryder was talking about. Her daughter's an elephant.
I think when you look at economics, it's really kind of hard to put one causation, for whatever.
I mean, there's bigger. I mean,
the malls malls across the U.S. have been closing for years just by the raise in online sales.
And that's a thing. And I was thinking about that on this Amazon thing going into Easttown. I don't think that concerns me long term for Knox County, Knoxville mom and pops.
I didn't realize they were tearing it down. I think I saw an article yesterday. You could watch them.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought they were going to leave the skeleton of it there because hell, you got brick walls. Like, why the hell are you knocking it all down?
Well, because you just got it's going to be a big box. It's just going to be one big box of shelving units.
Yes, but you had plenty of aisleways. You had HVAC and everything, like most of it already there. I'm assuming somebody did a cost benefit.
Yeah, I would say retrofitting it to function the way you want versus just starting from scratch is probably the conversation.
You had stores, which could be offices or cubicles.
Fuck, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm in accounts receivable for Amazon.
I'm in the old JCP building.
Just come in, take a right. I'm in the Hot Topic.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, that concerns me. I mean, against even the Walmarts, which I know we have our mixed feelings about Walmarts and stuff. But how much is it going to hurt Walmart when I can same day shit from Amazon locally? Because that's
they knew it was going to hurt them. That's why more and more of those big box stores are offering that.
Right.
Where you can ship or do online pickup.
Right, but the long term is, what does that do to to the real mom and pops locally that sell items
that's been an issue, 15, 20 years ever since the internet kind of became.
But I think the same day is the big problem. The same day from Amazon is going to be a big kicker.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned on what that's going to do to other local retailers.
But in the Amazon thing, I thought it was just going to be like an office. Or is it actually going to be a fulfillment center?
I believe it's a fulfillment center. I don't know. That's maybe I just assumed that. I don't know.
I thought there was talk of putting in a fulfillment center.
There's one in Maryville.
On Maryville.
Yeah, that one's already in process too. But I think it's both. I think it's a.
Yeah, that mall property isn't large enough. I don't think
that'd be a weird office
just a
building.
Huge office. Yeah.
Yeah. I liked the one the original plan for that remodel was going to be tear it down and build like a 8-story apartment complex with the bottom floor being retail and stuff like that, where it's going to be a multi-use building. I thought that was a good idea. Told Tommy yesterday, I was like, no more parking lots in the city of Knoxville. It's on my list of things.
More park.
Yep. If you're building a new commercial, shopping center or whatever, you do the Publix model from downtown.
That parking.
The Publix Walmart thing that you build it on top of its own parking lot. So the ground floor is parking, and then you go up an escalator or whatever. Sure, that costs the developer more money, but Knoxville's at the point where we can't just waste space on parking lots like we used to.
And with the rise in that's what run a lot of stormwater issues because you no longer have that ground that can absorb water.
Well, I mean, realistically that doesn't change because you just have twice as many. You just have twice as many stores or whatever on the same square footage on one parking. Like right now, like there's a I don't know, like up here at the Food City and stuff where you have that. It's a big U-shape building,
right? And
then it's all parking in the middle. You would just have all buildings and then parking underneath it, or you'd have less buildings and
I
put
think
green
it would
space
take
in.
up less square footage,
right?
Square acreage.
Or what I'm just saying, you just add, yeah. Either way, we are at the point where I think multi-use buildings in the city limits need to happen. I hate the ones on campus. I've complained about that forever. They're so generic. And we were talking about rent and stuff. There's a 1-bedroom behind the Salsaritas on campus. It's $1,000 a month for a 1-bedroom, and it's not very big.
Right, that's bad.
It's ground floor though.
About average.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for a 1-bedroom place. But it's right. I mean, it's downtown on campus. It's selling to students, kind of shit, whatever.
Right.
But I just think, I think long term we can't we've got to start stacking stuff in Knoxville all the time, everywhere.
Yeah, most cities have done that. I mean,
Yeah.
Tokyo's had to do it for years. They're like, we can't go out anymore. We got to go up.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's one of those things that I think that, it's easy to talk about and say, but it's not going to be easy to do because it's costly for the developer. But we need to do it because if we wait and
Does it save on property tax since you're taking up less property square footage? Or does it go off retail square footage where you've got 1,200 square of retail space on each
property
floor?
Tax is by the value of the property, not by this amount of square feet or whatever. It's not by acre. It's by this 1 acre is worth $10,000, so you pay $100 in taxes.
Okay.
So if you build a high rise that's a $10 million building, it's $10 million worth of property tax.
As far as like residential property tax, that's when it goes up when you've got more land.
Right, but at the same time,
it's a little bit of your value as far as if it's agricultural or whatever.
Right, but it's still based on the value of the land. It's not about the size of the piece of land. It's just a larger piece of land is worth more money.
But the size does factor in.
It factors into the value of the land because 1 acre has more value than a half acre, so you pay. But no, like if again, whatever the rate is, if the rate of property tax is 1% of the value, it's not $100 per acre. It's 1% of the value. And so if you have $1 million on an acre or $10 million on an acre, the property tax is relative to the value of the property. It has nothing to do with the size.
But it's more valuable because it's bigger.
Normally speaking, yes, but no, you could have, the inverse example would be, I have $1 million house on a half acre of property, or I have a half acre of property and I have a house on it and it's worth $1 million. I have a full acre of property and a house on it, it's worth $1 million. Pay the same tax because it's not about the size of the property. But likely that house, the larger piece of land is going to have a smaller house than the smaller piece of land to be worth the same amount of money, because the land is worth, the amount of land changes the value, but it doesn't. Anyway, that was way too complicated.
I get confused sometimes.
I try to, but met Mayor Kane today.
That's pretty cool.
That was pretty good. I just got my business cards in too. It was perfect. He made fun of my lordship, and he will remember me for that, and I love it. I probably shouldn't keep calling him Mayor Kane, but I can't help myself. Sure, I don't mean it.
Appreciate that.
I don't mean it derogatory. I mean it. Like we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think it's whatever. He could have been a lawyer in a previous life. He could have been a doctor in a previous life. He happened to be a professional wrestler in a previous life. That doesn't mean anything to who he is now and what he's doing politically. I have issues with his political movements or whatever, or I don't. Has nothing to do with who he used to be before he did it.
Right.
And I think that's a poor outlook on anybody's part. Oh, stupid wrestler Kane Mayer.
That's just what people remember him for. With Trump, most people remembered him for The Apprentice, because that was his biggest role prior to it.
Right, and I mean, it's not it to me. It doesn't necessarily say anything about the person. I mean, it kind of does, but yeah, I mean, if nothing else, being a wrestler, he has discipline.
To an extent, it doesn't make them that person, but
right. But I mean, if nothing else, that proves that there's discipline and there's hard work and there's effort. And there's dedication. If you're going to be a pro wrestler on that level, you've got to
pull off a spandex outfit.
You've got to check a number of boxes. Comfortable in your underwear in front of a lot of people. Yeah. Those are all wins in the political sphere as far as I'm concerned. But I don't care. I think it's stupid that it's used in a derogatory sense, and I don't mean it that way ever. I mean it in more loving way, like Santa Claus. Like it's Mayor Kane, yay! Again, I don't think it fucking matters. It's stupid, but it's kind of neat. Hopefully I can get him on here. Hopefully that's a foot in the door. If we can get there. I'll follow up. I'll email his office on Monday. Be like, hey, I ran into you at the store the other day. Just wanted to follow up and see if I could have a few minutes of your time, do an interview, and not know what to talk to him about him. But what else is going on? School board stuff. I'm mad at budgets. I was so excited about budget season. It's 2 weeks, not even. The mayor's budget's still out. I still need to look over. I still haven't gotten to dig through the 37 pages that's the county mayor's budget.
I think it was a city. I think it was a city or county's budget that I looked at. That was the previous one that was out. I want to say it was like 2017 or 18. But I got really confused when it was basically talking about investments. The chunks of money were going into trusts that have this percentage rate. I was like, I just want to know what money you're spending on, different aspects of of whatever. Like,
well, it's a way that they can make
that's
money.
how a lot of the money. Yeah, that's how the money is made, is in investing with
If we can
different trusts.
If we can put $10 million in this thing and leave it there, we can make $500,000 a year off it.
Right.
And if we can abstain from spending that $10 million, we can keep accruing, and that can be $500,000 a year we can spend on whatever. If we can hold on to that. That was one of the things Kyle said about some of the not FEMA money, but some of the COVID money that the county's getting. Like we're trying to figure out, we're waiting for the Department of Treasury to come out with guidelines. Because if we can just set it and invest it,
right,
it's like $100 million. It'll be making millions of dollars a year in interest.
Yeah, I think as part of that, they did put some kind of stipulation.
Right. Well, and that's what they're waiting for clarification.
They could go to roads.
But if they can use it, if they can use it as they at will and set it somewhere, and then all of a sudden we have $5 million a year just added to it without adding taxes to us citizens, but $5 million added to our annual budget by setting that aside. And in a case of emergency, we can break into it. That would be a great way to use that money. Maybe. I don't know. There's other things we could do with it too, but it's something to discuss if it's an option. But I mean, like the school budget thing pissed me off. Like I'm really mad about it. I told Watson about it the other day. I was when Virginia was on, talked to her about it too. It's like it came out on a Friday and was passed the following Wednesday. And it's like, I get it. I understand that you guys are working on the budget all year long. I respect that. I don't expect it to be like, okay, what are we doing next year? And it's a complete public conversation from the go. But I mean, 5 days
right,
of any sort of scrutiny on it. And even if
maybe they didn't want to get 500 emails from people like, can't you spend money on this? My school gets more money, and I'm having to buy tissue paper every year, and why can't some of that money?
No, they need to hear that shit, because that's that's the problem. I
bet everybody has different needs.
But even if
you can't,
even if you had a month to look at that budget, you're not going to be able to break that down.
Right.
I mean, normal people couldn't break that down. Like if I had a week, and that's all I did for 8 hours a day for a week straight,
and an accountant to help you look at it,
and I had Ron McPherson on speed dial, and I could call him every 37 seconds to explain to what this is and where this goes, and then every single department head and then every single principal on speed dial, so I can ask them specifically about this, that, and the other. That it would take at least a solid week of really breaking that thing down to a palatable version of this is where the money goes. And none of it and that doesn't even approach the conversation about where the money comes from.
Sure.
Which is a sole secondary issue, which is confusing and crazy as shit. So like both sides of the coin are impossible to follow. And here we are, 5 days.
Well, we elect people
passed.
We should trust to be able to do that.
But what parameters do we get to? What real parameters do we have to what's the word? To judge said trust levels with these individuals? Like realistically, what parameters do we have? Because we don't have time to pay attention to their campaigns anyway. And it's true. We just sit here and watch it go. And the local media, us included, suck at keeping an eye on them. I mean, it's just it's
mind-boggling.
It's not mind-boggling. It's
I think mind-boggling in the aspect of everything that we're kind of expected to be informed on. Everything from politics to education to everything else.
But it's
kind of hard to be in the know to make an informed decision on everything.
Right, and even if you are in the know, or in the according to Ron McPherson, the smartest person on BEP forum in the state of Tennessee, or at least in Knox County,
right.
I still don't understand it. And I'm the smart one. That's wrong. But I mean, realistically, again, it's like we got there are a number of solutions, in my opinion, that are impossible that won't happen. I mean, to me, the number one to me is like, why do we send the money to the state? The state sends it back.
No idea.
Why? I mean, the burden's already on the business, right? The burden's already on the business to collect and pay sales tax. Why wouldn't we just have especially now in the digital age or whatever? Why when we go onto the Department of Revenue site to pay our monthly sales tax collection, why doesn't it just immediately split that to where it belongs? But it all goes to the state, and then the state a month later sends it back to the county or the city or the township of Farragut or whatever the fuck.
I don't know if it would make a difference of just
and more
having that November, December Christmas rush and Thanksgiving rush where you're getting more sales tax that's coming in. So I don't know where that helps them kind of dole it out throughout the year.
But then more to the point, why are we sending 7% to the state, and then the state is sending specific portions back to the counties. I understand there's some leveling that goes on in the process, but like the school budget, for example, the state pays like 50% of that. So why don't we just have the county collect 3.5% more of sales tax? And then we only send 3.5 to the state because that's all the state does for other things that aren't. And then I don't know how much the state pays for the sheriff's office. I'm assuming they pay some, and then the county makes up the difference on that one.
Yeah.
So why are we sending it there to send it back? Why isn't it just, let's figure it out and keep it where it's going to be anyway? Because again, we made this argument.
You hope there's a rhyme or reason to it.
Their control is the rhyme or reason to it. We want to control that. We want to be able to put things in place where we get to hold this over your head as the state, so that we can control the counties. That's my assumption, at least. I don't have proof of that concept, but that would be the only thing that makes sense. It's a unified control. It's a centralized whatever, which I'm a strong anti-centralized power kind of person, because the further away it is from the people that it affects, the less effective it will be at doing so. That's why I hate the federal government more than I hate the state government, more than I hate the local government. Because Washington, D.C. has very little real world understanding of how you and I live our lives. So any decision that they're making that affects us specifically tax-wise, financially, they're not going to be right ever for anybody.
That's why we send our representatives there to represent it.
And they suck at it too. It doesn't matter.
Well, then we should recall them. They suck at it.
Well, so we keep recalling everybody. And I agree with you. We need to have a government that does its job, but we still don't, this is a conversation we've had 1,000 times before we even started the podcast. What is the job? What are they supposed to be doing? And, politically, there's 1,000 answers to that. But realistically, forget, let's just pretend government as we know it doesn't exist. How would we design governing ourselves if we were just really designing governing ourselves? I think the Constitution, I think the founders had a good formula in place that we've fucked over the last 200 plus years. The idea was supposed to be, at minimum, states take care of yourselves, and the collective good that we're going to do as a federal government is, I don't know, keeping England from coming back over here and taking us back into their colony, or what is it? No, how do we fought the French and all the other different random little early stuff where it was national defense was actually a thing.
Yeah. I want to say there was a Madison quote that was saying kind of the state versus federal was, the states were to be relied upon in times of good, basically. And then the federal government's more to be relied upon in times of strife. That's
actually probably fairly accurate, because the bigger the federal government gets, the more strife there seems to be. Now, the chicken or the egg is the real part of that conversation. Whether the size of the federal government is what's causing the strife, I would argue for. But either way, I think that's the real issue at play here, is that and again, it goes to all the different levels and all the different things we talk about. It's like, I don't think that anybody has a real expectation of what any part of their government is supposed to be doing. And since we don't know what they're supposed to be doing, or can't agree on what we think they're supposed to be doing, they do whatever they want. And 9 times out of 10, that's not in our best interest. That's in their best interest, whether it's politically, financially, just straight power, whatever it is that I'm trying to think of a big fancy word, but whatever gets them up in the morning to go do what they do. But it's for them. It's not for me and you. It's not for us.
I think some of what they do is to make some of their constituents happy. It's hard to make everybody happy, because everybody
you can't make
has different needs and different wants.
Can't make all the people happy. That's a song. You can fool some people. No, that's a Bob Marley song. Anyway, but you can't fool all the people all the time.
Yeah, there's Marley.
And now you see the light.
I want to say we passed a bill, which on its face isn't a bad thing. I don't really see the need for it, but I want to say starting July 1st through the following July 1st, and I think it's only going to go in effect for a full year. They did like a tax break on like gun safes or gun safety equipment, like trigger locks and things like that, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'm assuming someone thought there was a need for it,
I try to, I mean,
I mean, in one way, it's incentivizing people to, like, hey,
Be a
gun
little
safes
safer,
are
right.
expensive, and
be a little safer with your
we'll
weapons.
try to help you out. And
I still think
our state taxes,
I still
our
think
sales tax is super fucking high. So why don't we cut out,
Right.
almost 10% of your cost?
I mean, I still think my plan for gun safety course in middle school is genius. I think it needs to be done. I get it; it's not going to happen, but I think it's the right move.
Somebody would have done it if it was a great idea.
No, that's
Yeah,
not true. That's not true.
Yeah. Why?
Well, because who had the idea already?
I'm assuming somebody's thought of it.
Well, I mean,
I think it's something we used to have. Like I said, I think
Who
my
had the-
grandfather had it was some kind of rifle club, but I don't think it was a part of the school per se.
who had who had the idea for Amazon before Bezos did?
Sears.
I mean, like, they did have the catalog thing. It's true. I'm just saying.
You used to be able to buy your house. You could buy kit houses from Sears Roebuck.
I'm just saying, a new idea is a new idea. It may not be a new idea, but if it is a legitimately new idea, I don't think it's. I assume it's not a new idea, but I assume that the pushback from the Karens is why it will never happen, and why it hasn't happened if it's already been pitched anywhere.
I mean, why do you want to rely upon the schools to teach kids gun safety?
I don't know. Why do we rely on the schools for all the things we rely upon them for, other than just teaching our kids? I mean, at least gun safety, we're teaching them something. We're not making sure they eat, which we rely on the schools to make sure kids eat. That's not education. That's just life.
It's because they're there during lunch.
Okay,
We want to start letting them go home for lunch.
and they're there for breakfast. Kids go there early and
Lot of-
have breakfast, and then they have lunch there, and that's the only time they eat all day.
For some kids, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not an education thing. That's just we don't want kids to starve to death in our schools.
Well, same thing on air flight. If you're on a flight, they've got to offer you a meal if you're missing that time for a meal. I don't think it's required, but kind of became an expectation, I guess. And I think there is some kind of requirement if you're flying, an international flight during meal times, that they have to at least offer you something to eat instead of just a bag of peanuts.
I don't know. I know some of the COVID restrictions, they stopped feeding people on planes. Except in first class. First class was fine. You don't get COVID in first class.
Right.
They have better air filters there, and that draped door,
Curtain,
that curtain's more than enough to stop the COVID. It's like a giant mask, really, if you think about it.
I want to say I heard something recently as far as like spending, but I guess how much the federal government spends on air marshals, and then how much they haven't really done anything.
I don't
I mean, I guess that argument, how
still go
many
back to-
times did it save something from happening? But more often than not, those flights would have been fine, and we're paying, one or two kind of undercover air marshals to be on so many flights.
I mean, and it goes to the same thing, though. It's like there's requirements for, like, certain things that flight attendants have to, like, they have to have CPR training and some other stuff like that. Like, they're required to do a certain number of things. But we can't, we won't put the burden of security, we won't put on the airlines.
We do. Well, I guess not on the airlines themselves. But we have TSA agents that work at airports for
Right.
security.
And who does the TSA work for?
The Department of Transportation.
So they're a state agency. Is
Federal agent.
okay. An agency. Sorry, the capital S state. The state. Anyway, point being, so the TSA is like the highway patrol in the state of Tennessee, more or less.
I guess kind of.
They're state. They are funded and paid for by the state, not the people using the roads. I mean, I guess they are through taxes, but I'm just saying
The state. I'm pretty sure we're called the United States of America.
right. But when you talk about it's the state of Israel, it's the state of Russia, the State Department. Who does the State Department deal with for the United States?
All right.
The department.
Touche, sir.
I'm just saying
Touche.
that is the term. I don't get it. Well, it goes back to what I was saying either. What the government is supposed to be in this country. What I think was unique about what we did in the Constitution and stuff like that is I think that term was intentional. That we have states where in the geopolitical conversation we call them states. We call it the state of Angola or the state of fucking Georgia, country Georgia, not state Georgia. Shit, bad example. The state of Germany. Politically speaking, that's how they speak in that, and I think that was intentional on our part in the founding of the nation. Is that we have we are a united group of independent states, and we're united in the sense of we have a common defense need and a common economic need, and that's the goal of what we're doing with the United States as its own nation of states. That's why we don't have, it's not provinces or counties or anything like that. It's that I think that was intentional for that part, because the central part of the government was only supposed to be enough to hold this union together in a mutually beneficial for all the states program. It's not supposed to be one conglomerate of a thing. It's not supposed to be like a Germany that's all, like you get into like Sweden's and stuff like that. They're all very homogeneous. That's all.
Well, they've got their own districts as well. I think Germany has like 18, 19
right, but
states basically.
But they act as but they don't act as they're not independent in the same sense as the states are here.
Yeah, they are. They have their own laws.
They
have their own kind of like regional laws.
Okay. Well, I did not know that about Germany, but again, I think that's the point. I got.
They've got some of the similar like state laws that we have here, where they're pretty close, but there's depending on that area,
Did you see the speaking of states and stuff? Did you see the census update that came out a little bit ago?
Believe so. Yeah, we were down like 4%. It's almost like as far as like
Tennessee
the birth
went
rate.
down?
No, the birth rate.
No.
Our birth rate was down national.
I'm talking about the electoral changes and stuff like that was the big one.
Did see. Now, does that prompt? I think it did prompt some elections.
I don't know if it prompts elections or if it's just next time around. I'm not sure.
Or you just automatically at the next Congress, you're that representative that lost the district, they just are out of the job.
I guess. I don't know.
I don't know how they split that up. I think it said Texas and another state gained 1 or 2 reps, and
Florida and Texas gained. California lost. I'm trying
Virginia
to
lose one. I would say like there was some kind of eastern state that lost a rep.
West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, California all lost one.
All lost one.
And then Wyoming, Oregon, Colorado, North Carolina, Florida gained 1. Texas gained 2. Which is, North Carolina. I mean, I'm getting all my data indirectly from the Census Bureau through Matt Shears.
Right.
And
I'm still kind of curious because I know there was a big push to extend the census deadline due to the pandemic and them just not being able to go out and
I think if
do all the counting. So
I think if they redid I think if they redid the census now, it'd be even more. I think Texas. I think California might lose another, and Texas or Florida might pick up another. Tennessee might pick up another. I mean, we're growing fast. Nashville way faster than we are, but the state of Tennessee is growing quickly. Which you look at like housing values and stuff. I mean, all the poor AC trying to find a house right now is running into people from California and New York that it's normal for them to make twice as much as we do just because of the way those states work.
I think so. Yesterday or the day before, the cost of steel just jumped up a bunch. They said they don't expect it to stay high, but I guess temporarily the cost of steel is. I mean, jumped up.
We have real inflation on the horizon. I mean, it's going to happen. That's like people ask me, I don't quit the day job. That's one of the reasons I don't want to quit the day job.
I've read some stuff from the Fed chair and stuff that it's not something that they're worried about and they don't anticipate it.
How do you not? How? Please teach me.
I don't know that much about economics
because I mean
I leave that to experts.
I mean, I've got a loose handle on it, but I mean,
I defer to people that know a hell of a lot better than I do.
I mean, the real basic like elementary education on how inflation works is if whatever our fiat currency is, you go back to ancient man or whatever, and we have seashells, right? We trade seashells for goods, right? And so,
I understand the concept of inflation.
Okay. But that's why I'm at. To me, the basic concept of inflation says that we just injected trillions of dollars into the economy.
I don't think that automatically devalues goods across the U.S.
No, sure it does. It has to, because the value the value of the dollar shrinks automatically because there are more dollars. The same way the seashells example that I was going to go to. Yeah. If there's more seashells, then
maybe I'm thinking too much because you sent that one article about whatever theory of
modern monetary theory.
Modern monetary theory.
Yeah, and I still don't understand that one, but essentially that one that could be the trick. It could be true. Essentially, what that one says is that $5 trillion we spent over the last year on.
I tried to read both sides of it. And both sides made sense to me. I was like, both of them say they're right, and both of them sound like they're right. I don't know.
But and again, I think my very simple understanding of modern monetary theory says, yeah, that could make sense. But the problem is you're not going to tax the top. You're not going to get away with taxing the top. It's not going to me, the logic of being able to tax that money back from the top is, it's kind of a pipe dream, for lack of a better word. Like, I don't know that you're going to get away with that, functionally speaking, where the more traditional methods that we're used to talking about has borne functional, this can't happen. Yeah. Where I don't think, you're not going to drop a 60% tax rate on the top 5%. And they're just going to go, okay, we'll just pay that, whatever. It's just not going to happen. And they have the means and ability to avoid it one way or the other. So we're not going to get that money back off the top. I get the idea. The idea makes sense. I don't know. I just don't know how you structure it in a way to keep it.
Well, I've said before, like I think we would do well to bring a lot of companies that have moved offices overseas and able to avoid taxes and requiring them to. And I think they've tried to incentivize. They're like, hey, if you guys move your headquarters back to the U.S., we'll lower this rate as far as if you move all your funds and capital back into the U.S.
The basic issue is how we tax is the major part of it. Income tax being the big one, federally money. And this is the other one that gets lost in the shuffle, is what taxes are we talking about?
Right.
Because if we're talking about income tax, then sure, but that's federal money, and it's like, how much? Again, going back to what are they supposed to be doing? How much money do they need to do it? We went to the
Do corporations?
We went to the 1930s.
Are corporations as an individual pay income tax?
Depends on the type of business.
How the business set up. Okay.
But generally speaking, most of them pass through to ownership. Like an LLC passes through to ownership. So for me, for example, our business could make $1, could make $500, could make $10,000. It doesn't get taxed. Though there's lots of business taxes that go onto it, but as income tax, it doesn't get taxed because that flows to me, and then I get taxed. And that's one of the things that's one of those misleading narratives that people like to throw out. It's like Amazon didn't pay taxes this year. How much taxes did Jeff Bezos pay?
I haven't seen the guy to ask him.
I'm just saying but that's never part of the conversation. They say Amazon didn't pay taxes, and that's a problem. It's like, well, Bezos probably paid a couple million minimum in income tax this year. He paid more taxes in income tax than 10% of the population combined.
All right, but a lot of major companies, a lot of your incentives are also shares in that company and other, can't think of the right word for other incentives, like extra added,
benefits,
retirement, benefits basically.
Yeah. Right, and
so I don't know if those get taxed as well.
Right,
if they basically say like, hey, we didn't pay you, $500,000 this year, but we gave you
3 shares that's worth $500,000.
Right.
And then you get taxed. Well, then you get capital gains tax when you sell it.
When you sell it, right.
Right. But that's when you sell it.
Right.
But again,
that's where the economy gets really convoluted.
But for the business sake, the income has to go somewhere. If the company shows profits, which it needs to show profits because that shows the shareholders that there's value there, those profits have to go somewhere. And whether they're profited from or whether they're taxed on the company side of it or wherever they go. And that's, again, where, like you're saying, that's where a lot of shell companies come in and they move that money around a bunch of different companies and eventually...
Sounds like just like a war of accounting.
Yeah, it is. But it's
you got the federal IRS accountants that are like, well, no, you owe us for this, and this. And they're like, oh, no, we have this 401c paperwork in there that divests this into this.
Well, but it's who writes tax law? Accountants write tax law.
Yeah.
And so if you're an accountant and you have the means and you're a big enough accounting firm or something like that that you are writing tax law in, you're writing it knowing where the holes are, right, because that's a sellable asset to you and your company moving down the road. And you want, like, again, one of the problems with taxes to me is why is it so damn complicated? If it wasn't so damn complicated, it wouldn't be so easy for people that know what they're doing to avoid them.
I think it's just been years of, putting a simple law in place. And then accountant figuring out a loophole to it,
and then trying to patch it, I get it, and right. that may be the case.
That's what's made it. That's just more complex in my mind.
Right, and then we have this pendulum thing that Trump did some massive wealthy tax cut thing, and then Biden comes in and repeals it and changes this part of it and this part over here, and then it's just years in, years out of everything moves all the time constantly. So there's no consistency to it. So again, the people that know how to play the game know how to play the game. The rest of us that aren't wealthy enough to hire people that know how to play the game, right, are the ones that are stuck paying the bills. And just like everything else, it all falls on the middle lower class to come up with said money, because the top tier is not going to pay those because they know how to get around it. You know, I'm a kind of down.
No, I didn't make any. Apple, we didn't make any money in the U.S. Our headquarters is in Ireland.
Right, and and again, I think that's one of the things where the flat tax makes sense. I mean, that's how Tennessee does their taxes. It would be hard on a Tennessee. I don't know if it would or not. If you think about it, if you didn't have income tax, and you got all of your check when you went to work, and you got all of your check, but there was a 3% federal sales tax that would generate all that money that from all the sales all over the country. Would it generate the same amount of money? I don't know. That would be one I'd have to get an economist on and talk about GDP and stuff like that. But I would say that you could do it would be less out of your pocket as an individual from all tax brackets if everybody paid a small sales tax to the federal government as opposed to an income tax. Then you don't have to do taxes every year. You don't have to do your taxes. You don't have to file taxes. That takes all that IRS bullshit out of it. What little bit of the IRS would still exist would be to audit businesses, making sure the businesses collect and pay what they're supposed to. But you'd get rid of the whole audit department of the IRS as we know it. You and I as individuals wouldn't have to deal with the IRS. And, Randy Boyd wants to buy a new $1 million mansion and a $100,000 boat. He pays that 3% sales tax on that. Just like I'd pay 3% sales tax on my little John boat because that's all I can afford. But there's no avoiding that. If you live and work in the country, there's no avoiding that sales tax. So that tax would exist. There's no tax. There's no, I'm too rich to pay this tax. You have to pay the fucking sales tax when you buy the things. And the rich people buy the rich people things and the poor people buy the poor people things. And you're all taxed equally on it.
Yeah, there's always ways around it. I mean, you have private sales.
Sure.
Even with the internet, you've got the whole dark web.
Sure.
Is a major economy.
Sure. But on a comparable scale, you're not going to, that would be less, I would argue at least that would be less likely to be scammed as hard as the current IRS system is scammed. Scammed might be the right word. Dodged, avoided, danced around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know to what extent that it would do it. I mean, as the IRS stands, it force companies not necessarily go underground, but force them to putting up LLCs in the Bahamas and blah blah blah, shell companies basically.
Right, but if you do, it doesn't matter because you, as the owner of some company, even though your company is based in the Bahamas or Ireland or whatever. Mm-hmm. You want money because that's why you do the business, and then you go out and spend your money, whether it's on hooker. Well, maybe hookers you don't pay taxes for, but when you're in Vegas, apparently New York is decriminalizing prostitution too. Good on you, New York city, not state. Anyway,
yeah, I think I did hear.
But you can, you as the owner of the company, even though you have some shell game that you're trying to hide your profits in or whatever, because you don't want the income tax part. But if there's a flat sales tax federally, you're going to spend that money. And yes,
it'll depend on where you're spending that money.
And yeah, right. Yes, you are going to find ways to not spend it here and there and do that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, you're going to buy groceries. You're putting gas in your car. You're buying a new car. Yeah. You're buying things. And yes, probably the rich will figure out ways to avoid parts and pieces of it more than the poor will.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know to what extent,
but I just think it's less. To me, it's less. It's less likely that you're going to be able to play that dance as easily as you can dance through the IRS as it is now. But again, that all rolls back into what is the federal government supposed to be doing and supposed to be spending money on? How much should it cost to have a federal government? Not as much as we pay for it. Personally, that's a personal opinion on the tail end there. I don't see the value in the funds.
Like I said, well, let's start going through some government agencies and kind of breaking down. Like I said, there's a lot that we realize that the government does that we don't really think about.
Oh, you're probably right.
I sent you that about the NOAA, which the National Weather Service is part of.
Right.
I want to say it was last week tonight that was talking about the National Weather Service and basically kind of shitting on the Weather Channel, because they saying they're the leading source of all this stuff. But they would be nothing without National Weather Service.
Right. It's
National
like
Weather Service's data, basically.
Right. It'd be like a trucking company saying that they're the best trucking company in the world and not giving any credit to the TDOT for the roads they have to drive on.
Right.
Like it, I mean, that when you asked that question, you asked in the text, you're like, we were talking about government agencies we think hold value. What do you think about this one? And I was thinking about that, and as I was thinking about that,
never responded. I'm like, oh, you just blew me off.
No, the more I thought about it, the more to me it is an infrastructure piece. Like roads are an infrastructure piece. Like waterway management is an infrastructure piece. It's not, to me, it's not. It doesn't. It's more like a TDOT, which are
so
they're ineffectual.
Find a government agency that has some use.
It has some use, and to be fair, I'm not going to say that the other ones that we've bitched about before don't have some use,
right,
but are worth the value. I don't, and so on that answer, I don't know how much we spend collectively on the National Weather Service to say that it's worth the money spent.
Right.
But to me, it's like it's like the interstate system. It is an infrastructure piece that hundreds of other, like thousands of other people use to make money.
Infrastructure. I mean, the National Weather Service is more anticipatory in trying to predict weather that's going to affect everything else.
But I use it in terms of infrastructure as with like my trucking company example. Companies use that piece of government infrastructure as part of their business model. A trucking company uses the interstates, uses the state roads, uses the county roads as part of their business model to do the job that they're trying to do. So every Google, from Google and Yahoo and the Weather Channel to local news and whatever, like, I mean, because theoretically you and I, we could do a weather podcast if we wanted to. Right. And we could go on the National Weather Service and use the National Weather Service to provide the data to say, hey, it's going to rain today in Knoxville.
Right. And what local meteorologists are doing. They're like, they get on their computer, pull up the National Weather Service satellite models.
Right. And they're, and a good meteorologist probably does have some more interpretive skills of what they're looking at data wise than you and I would. Not to say that, the meteorologists are worthless people, but again, that's the same as a trucker to me. Yeah. It is that the trucker may not give credit to TDOT for building the roads and may complain about it. And maybe we could get we could get a meteorologist on here and talk about where the holes and problems are with.
I'm ever more growing. The more I drive around, the more I'm hating fucking TDOT and their shitty ass roads.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying it could be for people that are knowledgeable on weather and stuff like that the National Weather Service doesn't do a very good job of with what they have. I don't know that because I don't understand weather.
I know they pointed to, I want to say it was Hurricane Sandy, that most of the models, when they have a hurricane that's coming in, they've got that whole spider web of projected paths.
Right, the cone of
it ended up being a European weather model that ended up more accurately predicting where Sandy was going to go.
Yeah. So again, to reiterate the point is that I don't know. It's just it feels like infrastructure to me. It feels like a road, which again
I see what you mean. What you mean,
right? Which again doesn't mean that it doesn't have value, but I don't understand weather well enough to say whether it's worth the money spent because we don't know how much to spend on it and stuff like that either.
You can look at the budget.
Yeah, we could, but again, I don't know. What am I? How many? I'm sure it's in the multi-million, if not $1 billion. And
satellites ain't cheap.
And yeah, for sure. And we're paying Elon Musk to put them up in the sky for us, waiting on that Chinese one to fall on us. Yeah.
I saw a guy, I don't remember who he was with, but he was like, 75% of the earth is water. He was like, this is a very, very small chance that it's actually going to hit anything.
Well, dude, what's crazy to me is that
apparently they designed most of them as almost kind of, not some kind of like burners to where they will slowly bring themselves back because they know they're going to come back at some point.
Yeah.
And they usually predict it and, plan it to come back.
Yeah, they could map it out pretty well, but I thought it was I guess it was NORAD or whatever, the guy from NORAD or something like that was on the news talking about it. And he's like, yeah, well, we're keeping an eye on it. We know where it is right now. We've got a couple of different, like where we think it could end up kind of things, but we'll know about an hour or two before impact exactly where it's going to hit. It's like, sweet. I hope I'm not asleep. I hope it's not Knoxville and I'm passed out drunk. That would be terrible. Maybe I'll not drink as much just to make sure I don't miss that. But, that's just like that. An hour or two, that's not a big window.
Right.
Because it's going to be, I don't know. Again, the physics or people that are smart at physics are probably best at it and probably are only going to be able to get an hour or two notice on where it's going to hit. But man, that's not real. Like the way he said it was like we were supposed to feel really assured about it. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I got an hour to run if it's going to hit my house.
Okay, we'll call you if something bad's happening.
I mean, I guess
we'll make your phone go beep.
Yeah, that
beep.
Amber Alert thing. Yeah. So that was, I don't know. It's crazy, and I'm curious how that works on like a liability standpoint. Like, what happens if it falls in the middle of Nebraska and lands on somebody's farmhouse and kills a whole family?
Did you have satellite insurance?
That's what I'm saying. Like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's do
rocket booster insurance.
Yeah, let's do it a little nicer. The family doesn't die. It lands on the barn and kills their cows.
Is that considered an act of God?
I don't know.
Like floods?
Like, yeah, does the insurance come in, or does does the Department of State go over to China and be like, hey, your fucking rocket killed this guy's
you killed
farm.
the Smiths.
You need we need reparations would be the right word. We need reparations for the damages that your rocket did to this family.
Yeah.
How does that work on the greater political conversation?
Put it on our tab.
Yeah. Hey, we're gonna
the plastic goods and toys we sent you. Yeah, just take it off that invoice.
Yeah, give us a credit.
Yeah.
For the slave labor you provide. Oh, China. What are we gonna do about China? I'm trying to think of other local items. The budget was the big one that passed. It kind of came and went real quick. The cop thing in the schools. I was like, I'm curious to talk to some more of your district in the city races, because I think I like Tommy Smith's very adamant about trying to keep as much green in South Knoxville as he can. The urban wilderness programs that he's working on.
Yeah, there was a big push. They read at IMES. Like, I'm trying to remember the first time I ever went to IMES, but it's definitely grown and gotten better.
Apparently they're
they're
doing a bunch of work at the Fort what's the quarry?
Fort Dickerson.
Is it Dickerson?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the quarry's called something else, but they're making.
Yeah, there's Meads Quarry. That's the one they set up where you can go do the sup and paddle boarding, and I think they've got like a little bar that's set up there where you can buy beers.
Nice.
And some mountain biking trails.
Yeah,
you and I went up to Fort Dickerson. That was where, when I was in Boy Scouts, we did a Eagle Scout project, blazed a path.
Yeah.
Went up there once and we tried to walk the path and got 75 feet down, and we're like, all right, trail's gone. Like we're now just walking in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah, he was talking about they're doing a lot of stuff in there, and
they redid that hole there right there in front of it. It's like a nice little mini park, and they've got like a big circular rock wall. I guess people can meet and play in this little play area. Yeah. And up at the top is the old Civil War fort.
Yeah, we went a couple of years ago into the quarry and went swimming and stuff. And that's when they were working on it. And so I haven't been back, so I'm excited to see it and its newness.
That was the first quarry I'd ever heard of.
Yeah.
When I went to go do that project, I was like, what? I was like, there's a small little like lake pond in the middle of downtown Knoxville.
He was talking about there's a River Cities is a project that's going on, and another one that he wants to do, that he wants to try to do more growth on the river, which I would like to see it, don't get me wrong, but I just don't see it functionally as well. Because, I mean, that downtown, like the downtown access is tough. As far as getting on the water, like getting on
Volunteer Landing, that whole little area.
Yeah. Because like parking and stuff down there is tough. I mean, that new park over off of Sevier Avenue, where they've done all that development, is pretty nice. And that's got like a kayak launch and stuff at it.
I was going to say, I think there's a number of like put-in points that unless you're in the know, you don't know how to get there.
Yeah. But I'm going to have to write a business model, and I'm going to take it to him, and he's going to take it to Stephanie Welch for me. See if I can get some help with my my pedal pub, my floating pedal pub.
I saw a city. It was almost kind of looked like the old San Francisco trolleys, but they all have like little bike pedals. I think it is like a traveling bar.
Yeah, they have those. I looked into that. Like I was like, that'd be kind of cool, and especially with like the ale trail that goes up Central and stuff like that. You could go like start downtown Market Square, jump on the thing. Everybody pedals and everybody working together. It's not that hard. You pedal up to like Happy Holler. Mm-hmm. And hit some of the little bars and breweries and stuff that are in there, and then turn around and pedal back. Or it's a one-way trip or a two-way trip. I don't know. You could do the business model however you wanted. I was like, that'd be pretty cool. That'd be something might be neat to have in Knoxville. And I was like, I think it was actually after I talked to Tommy last time talking about doing stuff on the water. I was like, what if we did it as a boat? And we go over there to that launch point over on the Sevier Avenue, so by High Wire Brewery, their tap room, and all that stuff going in there in Sevier. Get on the boat, and we can pedal across and go over to Volunteer Landing for like game days. That'd be cool as shit. Get on the thing, pre-gaming while you're pedaling over there.
Be a part of the Vol Navy.
Yeah, go hook up to the Vol Navy, let people go off and, do whatever. That'd be fun, little whatever, getting more action on the riverfront. That's what Tommy wants. I'm going to do
Most
business
people
model.
didn't. Well, I guess they wouldn't go do it on game day, but those people that don't give a shit about football, they're like, you just brought me back to like the epicenter of fucking game day shit. And now I got to figure out how to get the hell out of here.
Well, give me $20 and we'll paddle
We'll
back.
paddle back out.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, because again, I think that's the South. The issue with South Knoxville to me is access. Like, as not that far away as it is, it is hard to get there.
Yeah. Especially when they were working on the Henley Street Bridge, and that was down for a good year.
A couple of years,
It was down.
yeah. And
then that you had to get on, Pellissippi to hit John Sevier and everything.
Yeah, and it's just a tough, it's just a tough way to get across that. I mean, because even in that, like, it's not walkable. Like,
I guess there's the State Street Bridge too. Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't go on. It's not really walkable because if you're on you're at Volunteer Landing and you want to go over to the Regal Building or whatever, that's a hell of a hike up the hill and then across the bridge.
There was talk again, I guess, I don't know if it was T-Dot or whoever was getting information on extending Pellissippi Parkway.
Yep.
I guess that's all. It goes into Blount County, but Blount County was like, no, we want to keep our green space, basically. Like, we like it. We don't want you to continue this road.
Yeah, because it's supposed to. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, I do. I have heard that that's back in the area conversation. Because I mean, we need a Knoxville bypass, and honestly, if you're Blount County, you should want it. It'd be good for you economically.
And we do. They call it 275 and 640, but they're not really bypasses.
Sucks. Right. Well, because
it gets you
was
around
talking
the
about
middle of downtown, but 275 splits off in the middle of downtown.
Right. Massey was talking about it. That's something that's been in the works, and it's in the works, and there's that really putting something in way out at like Watt Road that goes up past Emory and does a real bypass, so the 75 traffic doesn't have to go through town at all.
That'd be nuts. Because that's right, where 40 and 75 come together, and then you're going to have a major split.
Well,
major conjunction and major split, right?
Well, I think I would hope that the plan would be right there where 40, 75 come together, is they get it so 75 goes straight and doesn't come through town anymore, and then it curves around and goes way up. But we'll see. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's one of those things about like forecasting into the future. How much I think there's at some point the roadways thing's going to change. Whether it's like all these self-driving cars are going to change and we don't need as much road to do as much traffic because of self-driving cars, or I would love to have a high-speed train from Knoxville to Memphis stopping in Nashville. Just a couple, not a ton, not like you can get everywhere train, but you can get major jumps out of the way without driving.
I think I did see Amtrak was...
they stop in Bristol. They're not coming through.
Right, yeah, I saw that. It was like Atlanta, Nashville. I think Chattanooga was part of it, but just...
Yeah.
They said, Knoxville.
Apparently there was conversation about it, and I thought it was something the state was having bigger issues with. Because I didn't realize Amtrak is a government agency.
I was about to say that when I was looking at agencies. I was like, Amtrak?
But apparently the way that works is that it's... Amtrak is was a bargaining, a compromise between private rail freight carriers and public railway that was built. So there's a bunch of public railway built that
kind of split costs as far as upkeep.
Right. And so basically it was the freight companies were like, well, we'll just build our own rail. You guys suck at it or whatever, but we want access to this stuff that already exists. And the U.S. government was like, fine, but we get to run people trains on your tracks whenever the fuck we want to. Right. And we call that
But we'll give you the right of way as far as freight getting the right of way.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that works, but yeah, essentially it was basically that the existing public rail was given to private freight companies in exchange for they have to let us use it for people trains. Yeah. And I think it's functional. I mean, we've talked about it before. When I was a student at UT doing logistics, there are major foreign countries that come over here to see our freight rail system because it's so superior, where we go over there to see their consumer commercial people rail systems. And so like we have the rail, it's just a matter of whatever. I don't know. We'll see if Elon Musk could fix that one with his Hyperloop thing too. He gave that one away.
Did he?
Yeah, that one he put that he put that out on the public domain. Anybody can develop it any way they want.
I thought they were trying to build it right around Chicago. The underground Hyperloop, I guess.
I mean, I don't know, whatever it is, just, I don't know. And again, like, I think post-pandemic, we have this where we're going to have we get to really watch it happen, like how we react to the idea that virtual functions, you know. And I think that's part of this census thing. While we were joking earlier, I think Tennessee might add a state. Texas could add another seat or two, because I can work in New York but live in Tennessee.
Right.
Fuck yeah. You know, I mean, I lose out on some of the cool parts of New York, but I pay 10%, 20% cost of living down here. You know, there's going to be some major shifts around that, and how that affects like roadways and stuff is going to be one to watch too. I mean, the one thing I don't know. I don't know. I'm curious. I'm curious to see what it goes.
Could go in many different directions.
It could indeed. War. We'll do that all the time. That's all we do. That's all we're good at.
What is it good for?
Making lots of money. Wait, that's not the line.
It's only certain people.
Right. But only the Halliburton. I mean, that's just it. I don't know. It goes back to that, the hypothetical that Dave Smith was putting out about, like, we joke about, or we consider the super socialist left and the alt-right the extremists, but if you look at what the center of the U.S. government is, just really rationally and from a distance, that's pretty radical and extreme too.
Yeah, you mentioned that last time. I was going to get more of you talking about that. Not today.
Yeah, we got to get to work, but I don't know. It's it's an interesting thought experiment. Again, going back to like what we were joking about earlier, it's like, if you let's just pretend you could do whatever you want, and you could build your own government and your own nation, you know, and all the different things you would want to do. Just start with that, and then we'll put your version in perspective to what we are now. What is the center now of 7 wars, deficit spending, big bank bailouts, big business bailouts? Not many people are going to put that on their list of what they think their government should be. I mean, probably less than people that think we should be in a fully communist or socialist version of society, or even my anarcho-capitalist direction. Probably more people think that what we're currently doing, if you really looked at it, is probably more extreme than a lot. Maybe the anarcho-capitalists might supersede that in extremeness. But I think if you really thought about it and were really honest about it and rationally looked at it, you would think that what we are doing now is as extreme, if not more extreme, than what our extreme right and left is right now.
I'd have to dig into that more. Doesn't make sense off the top. But
I mean, just to do it, dig and think about it. I would love to talk about it more, because I mean, the more I think about it, the more accurate of a statement it is. It's just not extreme because it's normal. This is who we are. This is what we are used to being, and I think that's why people don't feel as extreme about it. Where the realistic reality is, it's pretty damn extreme. It's slowly creeped in. Goes with everything else I complain about. It's all big and complicated because of years of pile and pile and pile. And your Pop Warner example that you like to throw out all the time, you know, that's just how we got here, and this is normal. And so it doesn't feel as extreme as it actually is. But last call?
Nah.
Not even a Fanatic Rattler to go for the road.
I will take it.
FanaticBrewing.com/agreement. Special thanks to Marty Vallis and the Fanatic team for sponsoring this show today. Take the time, get down there to 2727 North Central Avenue. Is it Avenue? I think it's Avenue. Anyway, 2727 North Central. Check out the fan base. Fridays and Saturdays, 5 p.m. to close. They've actually started opening at noon on Saturdays most weeks, so that's not an official time, but I think noon is their new opening on Saturdays. But get in there for a $5 Black Angus burger, $5 Black Bean burger, or they also have a $3 37918 beer special. So a pint of the 37918 lager, I think is what it is, for $3. The Thursday night to do open mic comedy. If you are into comedy, don't worry, me and Sam won't be doing comedy for you guys. That's not good for anybody. We are Almost in Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Look us up at almostinagreement.com. All the website, or all the shows are there on the website, as well as most major podcast providers. Again, special thanks to fanaticbrewing.com/agreement. Have a great day.